Hello everyone and welcome to the second episode of my Kaldheim preview review. This episode we are doing the blue cards, so all the mono blue cards, there are 39 of them. So let's hop into this. Up first we have our mythic rare right off the bat. We have Allrun, God of the Cosmos, a 5 mana 1/1 legendary god creature. It gets +1/+1 for each card in your hand and each foretold card that you own in exile. In the beginning of your end step, choose a card type, then reveal the top 2 cards of your library. Put all cards of the chosen type into your hand, and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. This is a really good card. So on this side, it can easily be a 7/7, 8/8, anything like that. Blue honestly just has a lot of card draw and stuff like that, so it's not that hard to get full cards in your hand. Also with that the other ability of his, you can search for what you need. If you're really needing a board wipe, you're really needing some sort of removal, you're needing something like that, you can search for instants, you can search for sorceries, you can search for creatures. Whatever you're needing in your hand at that moment, you can search for. You can just kind of dig through your deck until you find what you need, and it's a great card. On the other side, we have Haka, Whispering Raven, a 2 mana 2/3 legendary bird creature. It has flying, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, return it to its owner's hand, then scry 2. This is the only double-sided modal card that I know of that actually allows you to play both sides of the same card. Like of the same card. So like you can attack with Haka on one turn, you deal combat damage, you pick it back up, you scry 2, and then the same turn or the next turn, whatever, you can use that same card to play Allrun, God of the Cosmos. All others, it's once you play it, it's down on the field, you can't really pick it back up in any way. This one you can, so I think that's interesting. A really good card, I'm excited to play with this one as well. Up next we have Allrun's Epiphany, a 7 mana sorcery, mythic rare as well. Create 2 1/1 blue bird creature tokens with flying. Take an extra turn after this one. Exile Allrun's Epiphany. It has Foretell for 4 and 2 blue. I don't like this card, really. I don't think it's that good. You're using 7 mana to create 2 bird tokens and taking an extra turn. Unless you're ramping really hardcore, this is probably the only spell you're going to cast that first turn. So what's it gaining for you? Realistically, the only thing you're getting out of it is an extra combat step. You're getting 2 combats in a row, but most blue decks I feel like are more control-y, right? They're less combat-y. There's Izzet, which is kind of like an Izzet aggro, Izzet mid-range, so maybe this could be used in that. I don't know. I don't think it's too fantastic. You're using a lot of mana to get 2 1/1 bird creatures and then getting an extra turn. That first turn, you're basically using all your mana to cast this spell, so I don't love it too much. Next up we have a Null, a 1 mana instant at common. Love this art, that's why it's the background. This counters target artifact or enchantment spell. Because of all the Lurrus enchantment decks running around, and they have a lot of new auras and just artifacts and all that stuff in this set, I think this is why they reprinted this card for that reason. They know there's a lot of stuff going on with that. They reprinted a common, they can deal with those things. It's a good card for limited and constructed. Next up we have Ascendant Spirit. A 1 mana 1/1 snow spirit creature at rare. For 2 snow mana, Ascendant becomes a spirit warrior with base power and toughness 2/3. For 3 snow mana, it becomes a warrior. If it is a warrior, put a flying counter on it, and it becomes a spirit warrior angel with base power and toughness 4/4. Spend 4 mana. If it is an angel, put 2 +1/+1 counters on it, and it gains whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. So basically, you have to do all of them in order. You can't just jump to the 4/1. You have to do all of them in order. It's alright. So, this is a 9 mana. It eats 9 mana to get to that top thing, so I doubt you're ever going to get there. It just takes a lot. Spending 5 may be feasible, especially towards mid to late game whenever you draw a land or something like that. You have a dead hand, whatever it is. You can spend 5 mana, and it gets a flying counter, which is great, because that means even after the turn ends, it becomes back to being a regular spirit, but it's a 1/1 with flying at that point. And if you ever need to, you can use the 2 mana ability to make it a 2/3, still with flying. So it never loses that flying, and that's really nice. So I think it makes it a mediocre card. Not great. Decent for limited for that reason that it becomes a flyer if you ever need it to. I like it. Augury Raven, a 4 mana 3/3 bird creature at common. Flying, Foretell for 1 and a blue. It's just a limited common, nothing special. Having flying, it's pretty good for limited though, so. Avalanche Caller, a 2 mana 1/3 snow human wizard creature at uncommon. It has the ability to Spend 2, target snow land you control becomes a 4/4 elemental creature with hexproof haste until end of turn. It's still in land. This is pretty good. Again, if you're able to use snow basics and stuff at your LGS for limited, this is actually a really good card because you can easily spend 4 mana or something like that towards mid to late game and get 2 or 3, however many, 4/4 elemental creatures, and you can win the game from there. So it's pretty good. I mean, a 1/3 body on a 2 CMC creature, pretty good, plus a good ability. So good for limited, not much for constructed though. Next up we have Behold the Multiverse, a 4 mana instant at common, scry 2, then draw 2 cards. Foretell for 1 and a blue. This card's good for limited, and that's about it. I mean, it's doubly opt, right? You scry 2 and draw 2 rather than scry 1, draw 1. But still, for mana, it's just too expensive to be played in constructed very much. The foretell cost makes it alright, but I don't expect to see it in constructed at all. And then it's pretty good for limited. It gives you card advantage. So up next we have Bergstrider, a 5 mana 4/4 snow giant wizard creature at common. When it enters the battlefield, tap target artifact or creature an opponent controls. If snow mana was spent to cast this spell, that permanent doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step. It's pretty good for limited. It gets bombs and any pesky artifacts in your opponent's control, gets them out of the way for the time being. If you're able to use snow mana, it's even better. So it's alright for limited. It's not good for constructed though. Up next we have Bind the Monster, a 1 mana enchantment aura at common. Enchant creature. When it enters the battlefield, tap enchanted creature. It deals damage to you equal to its power. Enchanted creature doesn't untap during its controller's untap step. So this card's making big waves in like the Eternal community just because it's so cheap and you can get it out so early. It's not good in, I think, standard constructed just because we have other instances of removal or tapping creatures, bubble snare and stuff like that. That we don't need a 1 mana. We don't need a 1 mana enchantment, right? It's just that we don't have the bombs and the issues that Eternal formats have. So I don't think it's that big, but I think it's a pretty nice card nonetheless. It's great for limited, gets bombs out of the way and whatnot. So yeah, pretty good. Up next we have Brine Borrow Intruder, a 1 mana 1/2 human rogue creature at common. Flash. When it enters the battlefield, target creature an opponent controls gets -2/-0 until end of turn. This is quite similar to Zulaport. Was it Zulaport? What is the card? It's the rogue. I can't remember what it is. It's the human rogue from Zendikar Rising. Basically the same thing. If not, I think that one is the exact same, except that it also has opponent mills 2 cards or something like that. So this may be seen in rogue decks, but without the milling effect, I doubt it. We'll see. It's nice and limited because you can combat trick your opponents, but that's about it. Next up, we have Cosima, God of the Voyage, a 3 mana 2/4 legendary god creature at rare. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may exile Cosima. If you do, it gains whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control. If Cosima is exiled, you may put a Voyage counter on it. If you don't, return it to the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it. Draw X cards, where X is the number of Voyage counters on it. So basically, roughly every turn, you get to put a Voyage counter on it if it's exiled, and then it can come back with, X +1/+1 counters on it. So it's pretty nice. If you're some sort of ramp style deck, some sort of Simic ramp or something like that, this could be a really good payoff for you. You can easily get 2 mana or 2 lands a turn or something like that. And then this can easily come back as like an 8 or like a 6/8 or something like that. So it's pretty good. On the other side we have the Omen Keel, a 2 mana 3/3 legendary vehicle artifact. Whenever a vehicle you control deals combat damage to a player, that player exiles that many cards from the top of their library. You may play lands from among those cards for as long as they remain exiled. It has a crew of 1. So it's a cheap to play. It's 2 mana and has a cheap crew of only 1. And then it gives this really nice ability of ramping, which works well with Cosima. So you may very well see this in new ramp decks, some sort of Simic ramp or anything like that, or the tricolor decks. I don't know the tricolors that well. So whatever the tricolors are, you may see them in those now. You may see this in make a 2 of or something like that, 3 of, just because you can help you ramp into stuff. It would require more vehicles outside of this maybe, so I don't know. We'll see though. And limited, It's pretty good as well, just because a 2-4 or a 3-3 body for pretty cheap is nice, and if you play it on the god side, you can possibly make it even stronger, so it's pretty good for limited. Up next we have Cosmos Charger, a 4-mana 3-3 horse spirit creature at rare. Flash, flying, foretelling cards from your hand cost 1 less than and can be done on any player's turn. Foretell for 2 and 1, or 2 and a blue. So, I like this card a lot, actually. Foretell is a mechanic that you don't need to build tribal around, right? It's not like the party mechanic or something like that, where like if you're going to play party, it's party tribal, you know? You can play foretell cards just for fun, just because they're good cards on their own right. But you can also play cards like this and have a foretell tribal deck. I kind of want to do that, because with this card, you have to pay 2 to exile it from your hand, and I get to pay 1. With one of these on the field, you only have to pay 1 to exile it. And then if you have 2 of these on the field, you have to pay 0. You can just exile it and then pay the foretell cost, which usually makes it cheaper. So you can get really cheap effects on the field or whatever it is for free, almost like for, 2 mana less than what you're supposed to. I like that. Flash and flying is also really nice. The ability to foretell cards at any time is nice, except for I think once a card is foretold, you can only play it at a time that you could play the spell, I believe. I could be wrong on that. It's a new mechanic, so we're all trying to get used to it. But I believe if you foretell a sorcery, you can still only, or if you exile from your hand, let's say, like exile from your hand for the 2 mana, you can only foretell it for its foretell cost when you could a sorcery, I believe. I don't know yet, but the way I understand it is how it works. So it's not huge, but being able to foretell on other players' turns is pretty nice. Cyclone Summoner, a 7-mana 7/7 giant wizard creature. It's rare. When it enters the battlefield, if you cast it from your hand, return all permanents to their owner's hands except for giants, wizards, and lands. So this is a big bomb. In limited, I think it's hard to get up to 7 mana, but if you can somehow, this removes basically everything else on the field, possibly including your own stuff in limited, but still, it removes a lot of things. It's kind of like a weird board wipe, and you get to have a 7/7 on the field. And constructed for standard, this makes me kind of want to play an Izzet Giants Wizard deck. Bone Crusher Giant, Riel, stuff like that. This got thrown in there. A few other cards later on that I've seen that I kind of want to throw in there. Stuff like that. You have your own personal board wipe that only affects the other side if you're playing like a Giant Wizards deck. I like it, so pretty nice. Definitely not top tier, but I still think it would be fun to play. Up next, we have Depart the Realm, a 2-mana instant at common. Return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. That's foretell for 1 blue. So this is a card that it costs more for you to foretell it, but if you have nothing to do one turn, you may want to foretell it. I don't know. I think it's probably better to keep it in your hand, unless your opponent's playing discard or something like that, and then you want it to be exiled. That's something I like about foretell, is that if you know your opponent's playing if you know your opponent's playing discard or hand hate or anything like that, then you can kind of get cards out of your hand, but they're still playable to you with the foretell mechanic. So it's pretty nice. I think it's the only reason you would ever foretell something like this, though. Otherwise, you just keep it in your hand to bounce something at any time. But yeah, pretty good for limited. Gets that bombs out of the way. It's alright for constructed. Up next, we have Disdainful Stroke, a 2-mana instant common. Counter target spell with converted mana cost 4 or greater. A reprint from, I think, Guild of Ravnica Allegiance, something like that. Maybe even earlier. I think that's where I've seen it. It was Guild of Ravnica Allegiance, one of the two. It's a nice counter. It's really good and limited because it gets bombs out of the air. Whatever happens, I say out of the air, it gets them out of the way. If they try to cast a big bomb, you can Disdainful Stroke it and it's gone. For limited, it's pretty specific. I mean, 4 CMC or greater. There's others that are a little bit better, but still, you may be a sideboard card of some sorts. Draugr Thought Thief, a 3-mana 3/2 creature, a zombie rogue creature at common. When it enters the battlefield, look at the top card of target player's library. You may put that card into their graveyard. So this card is a 3/2 body. Isn't bad, but it gives you the ability to basically surveil yourself or any other player. If you know what surveil is, it's from like Guild of Ravnica Allegiance, block from Demir. It it basically allows you to surveil, which is cool, I guess. Good for limited, maybe. I mean, you can kind of, if you can do it to your opponent, you can kind of get a bomb off the top of their deck. You know, it's whatever. Frost Augur, a 1-mana 1/2 snow human wizard creature, uncommon. For 1 snow mana and tapping it, you can look at the top card of your library. If it's a snow card, you may reveal it and put it into your hand. So this is basically not a tutor, I don't know what to call it really. You can just look at the top card of your deck, and if it's a snow card, you get to take it. So it's specifically for snow decks. I still don't see it being played and constructed very much, even in a snow deck, but maybe it will be. I don't know. It's a cheap little 1/2, so it could be. Not good for limited, just because snow decks are really hard and limited. Next up, we have Frostpeak Yeti, a 4-mana 3/3 snow Yeti creature at common. For 1 and a snow source, Frostpeak Yeti can't be blocked this turn. That ability, for 1, is great in limited. So if you can somehow have a limited snow deck, this is a good card to have in it. For constructed, though, I want to say it's good, right? Because the ability to not be blocked, to just be unblockable, is really good at limited, or sorry, really good in constructed. It's really good in general. So I want to say this could be a good card, but I don't know. It's kind of hard to tell. So I don't know. Next up, we have Frostpyre Arcanist, a 5-mana 2/5 giant wizard creature at uncommon. This spell costs 1 less to cast if you control a giant or a wizard. When Frostpyre Arcanist enters the battlefield, search your library for an instant or sorcery card with the same name as a card in your graveyard, reveal it, put it into your hand, shuffle your library. This card's really bad in my opinion. There's just no good about it. I mean, 5 mana for a 2/5, so really weak stats for a 5 mana. It could be 1 mana cheaper, so it could be 4 mana for a 2/5 if you control a giant or a wizard. That's kind of hard to do though in limited. So for limited, you're not looking at you're mostly looking at a 5 CMC for 2. In constructed, you could play it in a giant wizard Izzet deck, but it's just too bad to play it in that. There's no reason to. If the search effect isn't really super useful, it allows you to grab something that you've already lost from your. It's like if you've played an instant or sorcery that you want another of. You can search your library for it or something like that. It's just not that good in limited or constructed. I don't like it too much. Up next, we have Giant's Amulet, a 1-mana artifact equipment at uncommon. This is a part of that cycle that's it's some sort of like equipment cycle. When it enters the battlefield, you may pay an additional 3 and a blue. If you do, create a 4/4 blue giant wizard creature token, then attach this to it. Equipped creature gets +0/+1 and this creature has hexproof as long as it's untapped. Equip cost is 2. I like this a lot. I like this one way more than the Valkyrie Sword, which is the white, cycle of this. I like this card a lot, sorry. I like this card. I think it's a lot better than Valkyrie Sword. Just the ability to give something hexproof as long as it's untapped. It's a little, it's kind of like, it's very specific, but it's still nice to give something hexproof. And it's only 3 mana. It's 1 and 2 to equip, which is like half of what Valkyrie's Sword was, and then it's only 4 mana if you really want to create a blue giant wizard. If you just have your late game, you can create something extra. So for 5 mana, you get to create a 4/5 with hexproof. So it's nice. This could be seen if you're going hardcore in that Izzet giant wizards deck. You may see it in there or something like that. Next, we have Glimpse the Cosmos, a 2-mana sorcery at uncommon. Look at the top 3 cards of your library, put one of them into your hand, and the rest in the bottom of your library in any order. As long as you control a giant, you may cast Glimpse the Cosmos from your graveyard by paying 1 blue rather than paying its mana cost. If you cast a Glimpse the Cosmos this way, it would be put into your graveyard, exile instead. So this is a nice card. You get to just look at the top 3, pick one, put it into your hand. Put the rest in your library in any order. This is similar to Strategic Planning, which we see later on. It's actually reprinted in this set, but it's kind of specifically for giants in a weird way. And so I feel like if you're playing Izzet giant wizards, you'd play this over Strategic Planning if you choose to. But it can help you get what you need twice, which is really nice. To be able to do that twice is really good. So I think it may be played in that. In limited, it'll probably be played just for the fact that just doing it once. Even if you don't have a giant on the field, you can't replay it from the graveyard. You can at least play it once and get some sort of bomb or whatever answer you need into your hand. So it's nice. Graven Lore, a 5-mana snow instant at rare. Scry X, where X is the amount of snow mana spent to cast the spell, then draw 3 cards. So, being a snow instant or snow card, we know that its floor and ceiling are kind of far apart in a weird way, but they're really close at the same time. You're only playing this if you're playing snow basics, you're only playing a snow deck. So basically you get to scry 5, because you're almost always going to be spending snow mana on this. So you get to scry 5 and then draw 3 cards. Sounds like a great deal to me. Honestly, it allows you to control what you're going to draw really well, because you get to scry through 5 cards. That allows you to draw 3 cards no matter what. I think it's really good. So it allows you to find answers, it allows you to find bombs, it allows you to find whatever you need. At 5 mana, it's a little expensive, so you're having to set up for next turn for it, but you're doing so much for that 5 mana. I think it's pretty good. Good and limited, because you can, honestly, you could waste a turn using 5 mana to get a bomb or something like that into your hand, and probably be okay. So, up next, we have Icebind Pillar, a 3-mana snow artifact at uncommon. 1 snow mana and a tap it to tap target artifact or creature. I don't think this is really good and limited if you can do snows. Otherwise, it's alright. I don't think it's going to see constructed play at all, even in snow decks, but it could. I mean, it allows you to tap a creature every turn, or a pesky artifact if your opponent has one. Whatever. It's alright. Icebreaker Kraken, a 12-mana snow kraken creature at rare. This spell costs 1 less. It's an 8/8, by the way. I forgot to say it's an 8/8 for 12, but it costs 1 less to cast for each snow land you control. So this could easily be a 6-mana 8/8. When it enters the battlefield, artifacts and creatures target opponent controls don't untap during their player's next untap step. Returns 3 snowlands you control to their owner's hands. Return Icebreaker Kraken to its owner's hands. So, basically, it enters the battlefield as an 8/8, roughly around turn 6, 7, right? You can probably, if you're playing a snow deck, you can get this thing down to 5, 6, 7 CMC, somewhere around in there. So, then you get to tap, you don't get to tap everything, but everything that is tapped doesn't untap during the next player's untap step, or during their, so, I don't think it's great. I feel like if it tapped everything as it entered, that would be great. Then it would be a truly good card. But at 12 CMC, I get that you can reduce it down to probably 6 or 7 pretty easily if you're playing a snow deck, but like, it really, you have to wait for the opportune time to play this card. If your opponent doesn't attack, or your opponent doesn't use artifacts, your opponent, whatever the case may be, then you can't throw it out there. You're just holding it in your hand until they do attack, so that you can, keep them tapped. So it's all right. I doubt it's gonna be used in limited at all. Up next, we have Inga Rune Eyes, a 4-mana 3/3 legendary human wizard creature, part of that cycle of like leaders of tribes or clans or whatever. When she enters the battlefield, scry 3. When it dies, draw 3 cards if 3 or more creatures died this turn. So this is a great card in my opinion. I really like it. It scries 3 upon entering the battlefield, so just immediately you get a lot of information, you get to control what you draw, you get to drop stuff to the bottom, you get to scry 3. You do a lot with scry 3. Scrying 3 deep is huge. But not only that, it has this weird built-in protection from board wipes, that if your opponent wipes the board out, you get to draw 3 cards. So theoretically, your opponent isn't wanting to do that, so they're not going to want to board wipe you, because then you get huge card advantage. Or if something happens and they attack all and you block 3, you get card advantage. So it has this weird, it's built-in protection from it that it prevents your opponent from wanting to attack, prevents them from wanting to board wipes. So I really like it. Great for limited for that reason. You can scry through, draw so much, huge card advantage in limited. Same thing for constructed. It has that protection, so I like it. Carfell Harbinger, a 2-mana 1/3 zombie wizard creature at common. Tap it, add 1 blue. Spend this mana only to foretell a card from your hand or cast an instant or sorcery spell. So this card, in my opinion, is extremely similar to that what's it called? It's a one in blue merfolk creature. It's like Vulcanist, something Vulcanist. I can't remember what it's called anymore. But it's like tap it and you add a colorless mana. Only use this to spend instant or sorcery spells. In my opinion, this is superior to that. Harbinger is better than the Vulcanist. It's not technically strictly better than because of you add blue mana instead of colorless mana and all that stuff. But I mean, it gives you more variety. It allows you to foretell cards or cast instant and sorcery cards. So I like it. In limited, it's a great source of ramp if you're using mono blue. Is it whatever you're using? If you're using a lot of spells and sorceries, so I like it. I feel like it may or may not replace the Vulcanist, but who knows. Up next, we have Litjara Kenseekers, a 4-mana shapeshifter creature at common that's changeling. Whenever it enters the battlefield, if you control 3 or more creatures that share a creature type, put a +1/+1 counter on it, then scry 1. I feel like this is solely a limited card. It's not really constructed at all, but the ability to, if you're... I say it's a limited card. You're not going to be playing Tribal Limited, so the likelihood of them sharing creature types is really unlikely. But this isn't good enough to be playing in a tribal deck, in my opinion. I mean, you don't want a +1/+1 counter on it, so it comes in as a 3/5 and you scry 1 for 4 mana. Like, I don't think it's going to be used in tribal decks. It's kind of supposed to be for limited. I feel like at best it'll be in limited, but it can't play tribal decks in limited, so I don't think it's going to be played anywhere very much. Up next, we have Mist of Litjara, a 2-mana enchantment aura at common. Flash, enchant creature or vehicle. So enchanted creatures get -3/-0. I like this card just because of the amount of vehicles that we have coming in with this set and just everything. It allows you to answer vehicles or creatures. So if you have a really big vehicle on the field, or sorry, if your opponent has a big vehicle on the field, you can take care of it. If you have a big creature, you can take care of it. At the very least, minimize the amount of damage it's dealing to you or it's nice. With Flash, you can combat trick everything. So it's probably going to be used in limited, definitely going to be used in limited. I don't think it's going to be used in constructed very much, but it might. I don't know. Mistwalker, a 3-mana 1/4 shapeshifter creature at common, has changeling, flying, 1 in a blue. It gets +1/-1 until end of turn. It's just a limited common. I doubt this is not going to see any constructed play, but the flying plus the ability to kind of boost itself with the mana dump is pretty nice. Mystic Reflection, a 2-mana instant at rare. Choose target non-legendary creature. The next time one or more creatures or planeswalkers enter the battlefield this turn, they enter as copies of the chosen creature. Foretell for 1. Again, the foretell cost here, I feel like you're only going to be playing if your opponent's playing some sort of hand hate discard thing, just so you want to get it out of your hand so you can protect it. Otherwise, you're going to keep it in your hand as an instant for 2. It's interesting. It can be used in both ways, and that's why I really like it. So you can either choose, so your opponent plays a big bomb or something like that. You can cast this. You can choose a little 1/1 token or something like that. And instead of entering as a bomb, it enters as a little 1/1 creature, right? That's pretty big. On the flip side, it can be used for you that you draw this little 1-mana 1/1 that you don't really want. It's kind of useless late game, but then you already have your 4/4 or 5/5 on the field, let's say. You can just play this first and then play the little 1/1 that you got, and it makes it something bigger. It makes it at least usable, right? So it can take bombs and turn them into duds, and it can take your duds and turn them into at least bombs or at least something, and turn them into something better than duds. So I like it. I definitely can see it using constructed or limited. Limited for sure, just because it can help get rid of bombs. Constructed, maybe in some sort of wacky deck. I don't think it's going to be like a tier 1 of any sort of card, but it'll be fun to play with. Up next we have Orvar, the All-Form, a 4-mana 3/3 legendary shapeshifter creature at Mythic Rare. It has Changeling, and whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, if it targets one or more other permanents you control, create a token that's a copy of one of those permanents. If a spell or ability an opponent controls causes you to discard this card, create a token that's a copy of target permanents. So basically the top part is just that if you have a sorcery or instant or some spell like that that targets a creature you control or a permanent you control, so not even a creature, necessarily a permanent you control, you get to create a copy of that permanent. That's really nice. So if you're playing Is It Storm or anything like that, or is it just some sort of Is It, you know, lots of instances, lots of sorceries, you get to create copies of permanents with this card in the field, and that's really nice. You get to take your bombs and make multiples of them, or you can take your artifacts or equipment, something like that, enchantments, anything like that, any sort of permanent, and you get to make multiple of them, and I really like that. The ability that it kind of anti-discard hate is nice. So even if something happens and you drop this card for some reason, you get to create a token of a target permanent. You only get to create one, but it's something. It doesn't just kind of disappear. It doesn't just discard out of your hand. It's a nice card. It'll probably be seen in some sort of Is It deck. You know, I don't see it being much else, but I don't know. Next up, we have Pilfering Hawk, a 2-mana 1/2 snowbird creature at common. Flying, pay 1 a snow mana and tap it, draw a card, then discard a card. Mostly just a limited common. I don't think anything special about this. At 2 mana, it's, you know, it has a flyer for 1. It's a flyer, and you get to loot with it. So I think it's for limited. A Raven Form, a 3-mana sorcery at common. Exile target artifact or creature. Its controller creates a 1/1 blue bird creature token with flying. Foretell for 1. I actually really like this. I think this may become common in standard constructed, just because of that exile target artifact portion there. Exiling, you know, any sort of artifact. We have like Maul of the Skyclaves, and we have Embercleave, and we have all these new artifacts that are kind of coming in right now. Being able to exile one of them for 3 mana, whether it be 3 now or 2 now, 1 later, whatever, and just creating a 1/1 bird fly. Like, we can deal with a 1/1 bird, right? Dealing with Embercleave is a lot more difficult. The only thing that kind of makes this card a little meh is that it's sorcery speed, not instant speed. Your opponent can't flash an Embercleave, attach it to a creature, and then you play this sorcery, right? Like, if it was an instant, you could definitely do that, and it would be way better. But I still think it's going to be seen and constructed, and it may be seen. It'll be played and limited for being able to get rid of big bomb creatures. Up next, we have Reflections of Litjara, a 5-mana enchantment at rare. As Reflections of Litjara enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Whenever you cast a spell of the chosen type, copy that spell. So this is intended just to be a sort of tribal gimmick card that if you're playing tribal, every time you cast a card of that type, you get to create 2 of them instead. It's really fun. It's going to be some sort of fun, janky, you know, deck with all the new subtypes that we got coming in now. So I think it's going to be nice. Don't think it's going to be limited any because you're not playing tribal and limited, but it's fun, janky deck, so I like it. Up next, we have Run Ashore, a 6-mana instant at common. Choose one or both. The owner of target non-land permanent puts it on top or bottom of their library. Return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. I don't think this is a great card. It'll probably be used as limited for its 2 effects. The bouncing to hand is nice. You get to deal with 2 bombs here with this 1 card, and I think it's what makes it good. So it's kind of like you get 2 effects, 2 3-mana effects. It costs 6 mana, but you get 2 3-mana effects, so it's nice. The only question, I don't understand the top reading there too. I'm confused if, do you get to control whether it goes top or bottom, or do they get to control whether it goes top or bottom? If they control where if it goes top bottom, it's a little less good, but it still gets rid of 2 bombs, so it's limited. Either way, it's not constructed. It's not going to be good. So, up next we have Rune of Flight, our 2nd rune. I'm so excited for this one. It's a 2-mana enchantment or a rune, an uncommon enchant permanent. When it enters the battlefield, you draw a card. As long as enchanted permanent is a creature, it has flying. As long as enchanted permanent is an equipment, it has equipped creature has flying. So this is a rune that you can equip to an equipment, and it gives it flying, and it's great. And I love this so much. So excited to play for this one as well. I do have a question about this one though, just kind of curious. If you equip it to something such as the Colossus Hammer from M19, M20, that specifically states it loses flying, which one overrides? Does the rune basically do nothing, or does the Colossus Hammer gain flying? Or does you know what I'm saying? I'm assuming it's essentially Rune of Flight does nothing, that you just lose it. I'm assuming it's how it works, but I don't know. If that's a way to overcome the Colossus Hammer and give it flying, that would be nice, but I'd really doubt that. Either way, excited to see this. This is definitely going to be constructed and limited. Up next, we have Saw It Coming, a 3-mana instant uncommon. Counter target spell, foretell for 1 in the blue. This is a better version of Cancel, and I love Cancel. I feel like Cancel should almost always be in Standard. I feel like something akin to Saw It Coming or Cancel should be a staple in Standard, just because it kind of embodies what blue does. So I like it. Definitely going to be seen in Constructed, definitely going to be seen in Limited. Strategic Planning, a 2-mana sorcery at common. Look at the top 3 cards of your library, put 1 of them into your hand, the rest into your graveyard. This is a reprint. I think the last time we saw this was Amonkhet, if I remember correctly. But it's a nice card. Again, this is what I was talking about earlier, that if you choose between this or the other one that I can't remember what it's called anymore, the other one was a tribal deck for Giants, Glimpse of the Cosmos, I think. You would choose Glimpse of the Cosmos if you're playing a tribal deck, right? But otherwise, you would choose this one, because I think they're the exact same. No, this one is you put them into your graveyard. Strategic Planning, you put them in the graveyard. The other one, Glimpse of Cosmos, is you put them on the bottom of your library. So, they're both really good cards. So they're both going to see play. And lastly, we have the Undersea Invader, a 6-mana, 5/6 giant rogue creature common flash. When it enters the battlefield, or enters the battlefield tapped. This is a bad card, in my opinion. Not good for Limited, not good for Constructed. It's just a really bad card. I don't understand it at all. Like, you would only ever flash this in on your opponent's end step, right? So you get a 5/6 for 6 that doesn't do anything. Like, it's a bad card. It doesn't even pass the vanilla test. It enters... It's a negative vanilla test. Like, it enters as a 5/6 tapped. I don't get it. I mean, I guess in Limited, a 5/6 is a big creature, so it'll be seen play in Limited just because it is a pretty big creature. But at 6 mana, it's really expensive to enter tapped, and I don't know. I don't like it too much, but it is what it is. And there is our blue cards for today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please leave a like and consider subscribing if you did. Leave a comment down below on how you feel about these cards. What do you think is the best? What are you most excited to play with? I like Allrund. I'm not nearly excited for Allrund as I am for Halvar, but, you know, it's a nice card. I am excited to play something like a Foretell Tribal with Allrund and the Cosmos Charger, and then possibly like an Is it Giant Wizards with what we've seen so far. I think there's some more later on in the reds that it's intended that you kind of play something like that. And so I think it's nice. I'm excited to play those. So talk about what you're excited to play, and let's, look forward to the next episode tomorrow. Or I think the next episode is Black. So we'll be doing Black hopefully later today, maybe tomorrow, somewhere around there. We'll just pump it out as quickly as possible. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a like and subscribe, and I will see you all next time.